Hey fellow Restopians, welcome back to Restopia. Hi to some more new subscribers. I'm going to up the content a bit. Please let me know in the comments below what you'd like to see. The last few videos have been about some very high-end, I would say, watches. As high-end as I kind of am interested in anyway. I'm a big dive watch fan, so I do love this Omega Seamaster Professional Planet Ocean Ultradeep 6,000 meters. I think I got those things the wrong way around a little bit, but it's got everything in there. No gloves today because I need to be ungloved for what I'm about to do. I've been doing some gardening, so excuse the manicure. What am I wearing? Wrist check. I have my Tissot Seamaster 2000 Professional 600 meter dive watch on. Helium escape valve there, claspy thing. I'm going to get the verniers out because it's actually even bigger than the Ultradeep. Let's have a quick measure. I think it's 46 millimeters, and I did say that this was on the upper edge of big for me, but there's some, you know, there's some heft. Is heft a word? Heft. There's some heft involved in the Omega, which isn't the case with the Tissot. I mean, it is a beast, the Tissot. It's not the most comfortable watch in the world. Interesting, actually. 45.558, 45.45. 45.5, which is actually kind of, yeah, so it's not any bigger, but it does look, to me, it's all about the dial, isn't it? I guess it does look bigger. Yeah, as I was saying, it's not the most comfortable watch in the world. Approximately 16. I'm not going to go too mad on these measurements. I think it's 18.2, yeah, roughly. So yeah, a couple of mil less thick. It's not the most comfortable watch, but it is. I mean, it's an economic option. It's part of the Swatch group, economic option to the Omega Seamaster 600 meters Planet Ocean, which I love. It's very quirky. You know, it's not press steel clasp. I mean, it's not the best watch in the world by far, but I do love it. I do love that wave, the wave dial. It's a big heavy watch for not much money. Yeah, not a watch regret at all. But yeah, so I popped that on just to have something on the wrist. But the point of this video, I mentioned the quality. I haven't got the Rolex Deep Sea here to compare against. But I did mention in that video the difference in feel between the two. And I'm going to go through setting it and be a bit more specific about that, about the difference in quality of the mechanics that you're touching with those two watches. The Rolex is sublime. I mean, it's faultless. You cannot fault the bezel action or the crown action. It's just, I cannot imagine it being better than it is. And if it could be better, it really doesn't need to be. Now, I said in that video that maybe, you know, they're just different. You know, there's no point in getting too worked up about it. But I just wanted to explain some of those differences in this video. Now, we've covered the bezel completely. You know, it's a real rugged kind of, you can hear that. Now, I had some problems with my Planet Ocean 600 meter bezel. So, you know, they're not foolproof. But it's the crown. So I'm going to quickly go through my feelings on the crown on this watch. Now, I had gloves on before, but it's after setting it this morning to have a final sort of wear of it, it brought home some home truths. So undoing the crown, it's quite, you know, there's quite a lot of unscrewing, which is not a bad thing. But when it pops out, it's extremely wussy, which is the word I used last time. It doesn't kind of, the pop out of the crown does not match the look of the watch. So it's out now. Now I can wind it. Now that winding is, you know, it's hard work. Winding that feels a chore. It doesn't feel at all. It's a lot of effort on my forefinger and thumb to wind that movement forward. You know, and listening to it, I mean, you can't really hear it, but it's just a lot of effort. I mean, if this was a manual, I mean, it's not going to be a manual wind watch, but if it was, I couldn't do that every day. I just couldn't do it. There's no pleasure. You couldn't do it like that. Not that you should do it like that, because you're putting stress on the crown. I'm not even trying to, but you couldn't do it like that. You have to put both fingers on it and turn it, and it is a real effort to do that. Now pulling the crown out, I actually cannot. I was doing it with gloves, and the reason I couldn't do it with gloves, I've realised this, that you can't actually get a purchase on it and pull it. Even without gloves, I cannot pull that crown out. I'm actually trying. I'm holding it equally. I'm really gripping it as hard as I can, and I cannot pull that crown out. The only way you're going to get that crown out is to, and there isn't much of a gap. I haven't really got nails at the moment. As I said, I didn't say it because I had to pull this out, but I've been doing gardening, and you know, I had to cut my nails because they were full of earth. But I haven't really got nails at the moment. But the only way, that is out one position now because you've gone to the quick set hour hand. The only way you're going to get that crown out is if you put a nail in there. So if you don't have nails, you ain't getting that crown out. I mean, when you push it back in, it doesn't feel, there's no solidity to the movements of everything feels bad on this watch, if I'm really honest. You know, pulling that, I think, oh yeah, I've accidentally pushed it in and turned it, so it was starting to lock. But I cannot pull that crown out, and I'm not faking this. I've just got it out now, but I did get a bit of a nail in there, so that's now out. I mean, you can feel it's come out, but it's not. It's not. What's the word I'm looking for? It's very like. Ugh. It's not like. Right, so that's out to the quick set hour hand position, and then obviously it's out a bit more now, so I've got a bit more purchase there. And it came out again. I felt it come out, but it wasn't great. So now I can adjust the time. Then I will pop it back in. I mean, again, that just didn't feel great. And I'm not saying this to be anti-Omega, but it's a very noticeable difference between this and its equivalent Rolex, which I consider its equivalent Rolex. I don't consider the Deep Sea Challenge to be its equivalent. But yeah, I think they bunny hop each other, you know, in terms of I don't know. There isn't a really like-for-like comparison. I think you could compare. I mean, I got the Planet Ocean 600 meter because Adrian Barker, I think he compared it to the Deep Sea. But you know, is that the? I mean, I guess it has to be. I mean, is that the realistic? I would imagine the 300s that compared to the Submariner, the Planet Ocean, sorry, the Seamaster 300s compared to the Submariner. I guess, therefore, the Sea Dweller would be compared to the Planet Ocean 600 meters. Maybe that's what he had in the video thinking about it. So I guess this is then leaves to be, this is the comparison with the Rolex Sea Dweller Deep Sea that I did in a previous video. And then the Deep Sea Challenge, which is is just silly. I'll admit, I mean, it's just, I've never seen one in the flesh. I try not to comment on watches unless I've seen them in the flesh, but yeah, it probably is like really silly and just pointless. And part of that is based on this one being as big as it is, and it's. But saying that, it doesn't feel as big as this one in many ways. I mean, look at to me, that just looks much bigger. It's because it's got a bigger dial. The dial makes all the difference, really. But yeah, so everything on this. So I've now pushed that back in, and now I've got to push and turn to screw that crown back in. the best feeling of anything I did there was when that crown stopped turning and it's tight against the case. Everything else that I've done in setting this watch and using the, I mean, the bezel's fine, don't get me wrong. I didn't find setting the time and winding it at all enjoyable. I think, you know, if you're doing that a lot, I think it would become very wearing. But yeah, maybe I'm a bit weak. Maybe my thumb and forefingers are not as strong as I thought they were. You know, maybe I need to man up a bit to own this watch. But in comparison to the Rolex, and speaking of which, let's get this Tissot off. In comparison to the Rolex, the bezel action and everything, every single thing about winding, setting, this watch is inferior. In my opinion, but there's so much of a what do you call, like, there's so much of a trench there, there's so much of a cavern, there's so much of a gap there that I don't think anyone could say that this feels as much quality in terms of using the movement as the Rolex. The Rolex is, it's just Rolls Royce. I mean, I cannot, it's like, I really like the Seiko NH35. I think it's a lovely movement to use. I've got it in Seikos. I've got it in a helm. I've got it in, I've probably got it in, what other watch? Pagani design. You know, I really like that movement. It is a joy to use. In fact, I've got one over here. Let's reach over. Yeah, I've got one in my helm. God, this feels light compared to that. Yeah, NH35, pretty sure the helm, would this be, well, it's a Seiko anyway. But yeah, to unscrew that crown, it popped, very definite pop. The white, I mean, you know, it's not, you know, I could do that with my little finger, look, you know, whether that's a good or bad thing. I think not being able to do that with a finger at all, and I wouldn't put as much pressure on that. I don't want to push that crown sideways. I mean, some people do that to wind watches. I think on one where it's, you know, as easy as this, I mean, that's not causing it any problem at all. You know, I could probably, you know, I could probably do that. I don't know. You know, but it's just a lovely, it's just a lovely watch to wind. You know, it just feels calming. And then sort of popping it out and adjusting the time, popping it back in, it just feels definite, and then putting it in and screwing up. I mean, that is something I could do every day. If this was a manual wind watch, I could do that every day, no problem. But yeah, the Omega, not so much. So yeah, the NH35 is if there is an NH35 in here, I'm pretty sure it is. I don't know how it all works really. Does the NH35 have a date, and so therefore this has a ghost date? Not sure, pass. But you know, the helms are just buttery smooth. They're just so nice. Maybe could do with a bit more weight to them, so it didn't, you know, it felt a bit more positive. But yeah, I mean, you can have too much weight. I mean, that is this is a chore to set. Let's have a look, because I haven't actually set the Tissot Sea Star for a while, but just in comparison, you know, that popped out nicely. Yeah, winds, I mean, it's a lot harder to wind than the Seiko that's in the helm over there, but it's not too bad. You know, I can do it like that, so it's certainly less force needed on there than the Omega. If I pop it out, and it wasn't to set the date, it wasn't amazingly you know, definite. I pop it out again, that was a more definite click to set the time, and I pop that back in all the way, felt fine. Screw it up, no problem. So yeah, significantly nicer to set the Tissot than the Omega. And yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I'm not really, you know, throwing mud at the Omega, but I think it's something that needs pointing out, and I am surprised that people don't check how movements feel to set and wind before they buy a watch. And my experience is that people just don't. some watches are also, the rotors are quite noisy. I think if you put any watch, you know, and this is not actually noisy, but if you put most watches to your ear and make a point of listening to the rotor noise, I think most people think it's noisier than they imagined. But some watches, you just wear them and you can just move your wrist and hear the rotor, which I don't think is a good thing. And I think that's on, so that noise in particular is on a Longines Zulu Time. That's the watch I'm referring to. The only other watch that I've heard that's that noisy is, I can't remember the name of the brand now, the Russian brand, which I think has a unidirectional rotor. So they are going to be noisier because they've got no option. They only rotate when they're right at the top and then they whoosh all the way down. Whereas when you've got a bidirectional rotor, it can go backwards and forwards without a full rotation, which I'm pretty sure the Longines Zulu Time is a bidirectional rotor, so it really shouldn't make as much noise as it does. But you know, people, as I say, don't check these things. Maybe it's something that you might want to be a bit more aware of before you buy a watch. Does it put me off this watch? Not particularly. I don't think in the grand scheme of things that, you know, it isn't a manual wind. It's a chore. But, you know, I think the enjoyment of the watch overall, I think the pros, you know, kind of overrun, you know, the pros outweigh the cons. But as I say, probably for the third or fourth time, it's worth bearing that in mind about this model, because I haven't seen too many reviews of this, but I don't think anyone's mentioned that. There are things that people on other watch channels just do not mention. Either it's kind of ignorance, they haven't had enough time with the watch, they haven't thought about it, or they don't care, and maybe they don't want to, they have a certain agenda, so they want to, you know, show a watch in a certain light rather than telling the truth about it. Hopefully, you know, I've crossed across sort of 3 videos, I've kind of said everything I can really say about this piece, and I hope it's been useful to hear those things and see some comparisons. But let me know in the comments below if you have any other questions about it, or any comments on what I've said about it. If you think I'm wrong, don't be shy, or if you just kind of want to suggest what kind of things you like about the channel and what I've done that you like that I can do more of, or things that you don't like. And but yeah, you can't include the videos being way too long and me umming and ahhing a lot. That is just what you've got at the moment. So, but yeah, content wise, let me know. Well, that's it for today. One wrist, live it.